This week on the Husky Update.
The university is instructed to keep extra vaccine doses in storage. Aoun pens an op-ed that lands him in hot water with the student population. And Redditors wage war against hedge funds. All this and more on this week's episode of the Husky Update.
Your campus, your news, all the time. From the Showman Studio, here is the Husky Update.
Hello and welcome to the Husky Update. I'm Nick Stolte, reporting from the Showman Studio. The Boston Globe has reported that, despite having 2,000 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, the university was forced to keep them in storage, rather than vaccinating staff outside of the current vaccination phase. University spokesperson Renata Newell was quoted as saying, "We could have hundreds of vaccinated people walking around, but our hands are tied. We still believe that because we have the doses, we should move ahead. But we have been persuaded by officials in the state COVID command center that we should wait until next week." Now that Massachusetts has officially entered phase 2 of its vaccination plan, the university has begun scheduling appointments for those at the top of the priority list, people with 2 comorbidities and those over 65. We now go to Josh Baker with Rapid Fire.
Thanks, Nick. I'm Josh Baker, and this is Rapid Fire. In campus news, President Joseph Aoun wrote an op-ed that was recently released in the Boston Globe. In his op-ed, Aoun eerily said it became too easy for students to take classes from their dorm rooms, despite the fact that their college or university moved mountains to reopen and offer an on-campus experience. This echoed an email sent to professors in mid-January, trying to encourage them to persuade students to come to class in person, despite the worsening pandemic. In Massachusetts news, the state legislature voted to override a veto by Governor Charlie Baker, making crucial provisions of the Roe Act law. The act was included in the state budget instead of as a standalone bill. The act expanded abortion access for minors 16 years old and older without parental consent and allows the procedure after 24 weeks of pregnancy in certain cases. Governor Baker vetoed the legislation after amendments he proposed, including eliminating the ability for minors to get an abortion without consent, were rejected by state lawmakers. In national news, Joe Biden has signed 22 executive orders since coming into office on January 20th. Many of these executive orders undid orders passed during the Trump administration, such as the ban on U.S. entry from majority Muslim countries, and Biden also passed a memorandum freezing the approval of rules passed during the last days of Trump's administration. Biden also passed an order committing the U.S. to rejoining the Paris Agreement on climate change, as well as the World Health Organization. Other notable executive orders include a federal ban of discrimination on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation, an order mandating that masks be worn on federal property, an extension of the freeze on federal student loan payments, and an order which prevents the Justice Department from renewing contracts with private prisons. In international news, South Africa's military has modified their dress code to allow women to wear hijabs. Maj Isaacs, who works as a clinical forensic pathologist in the military hospital, spent 3 years advocating for her religious rights to wear a hijab. With the help of a rights group called Legal Resource Center, Isaacs was able to get her case filed at court. This is an important victory not only for Isaacs, but for religious and democratic rights. That's all for Rapid Fire. Now back to you, Nick.
Thanks, Josh. The stock market was a hot topic this week due to coordinated efforts from Redditors. Here is Tommy DiMartino with more.
Thanks, Nick. I'm Tommy DiMartino, EP, and I come to you all today with a harrowing story of gains, stocks, and GameStop. Over the past few years, GameStop stock has been heavily short-sold by hedge funds. Short selling is when an investor borrows a stock and sells it with the hope that the price of the stock would go down so that when they have to buy it again to give it back to the company, they will buy it at a lower price, therefore making a profit for the company. Shorting GameStop was considered to be a relatively safe investment for years, as GameStop stock has been steadily declining as the company's been finding less and less success in the retail world. However, this all changed this month in what can only be described as an act of war against hedge funds. The Reddit community, Our Wall Street Bets, coordinated a mass buy of GameStop stock, driving the price of the stock tremendously upward. GameStop stock started selling this year at $18.84 per share, but the market closed on Friday with the stock selling at $325 per share, which is an almost 1,600% increase over 3 weeks. This strategy of buying a lot of one stock in the hopes of raising the price and forcing short sellers to lose money is called a short squeeze. Usually this strategy can only be done by the wealthiest of hedge funds as it requires a lot of capital. However, through the vast numbers of investors who got involved in Wall Street Bets' scheme, the combined efforts and their capital of the community was able to perfectly execute this plan. This plan almost failed, however, when on Thursday, Robinhood, a broker service which allowed the average citizens of the world to trade on the stock market commission-free, halted all buys of GameStop stock. This move was heavily criticized by a variety of political and media figures, as it looked like a blatant attempt of market manipulation by Robinhood, who was allegedly ordered to do so by Citadel LLC and its CEO, Kenneth Griffin, who Robinhood has strong business ties with. As a result, GameStop stock was down by over 40% by the end of trading on Thursday. However, on Friday, Robinhood reopened buying on GameStop stock with a limit on the amount of stocks an individual could buy. As a result, GameStop stock shot back up by almost 68%. With the purpose of further squeezing hedge funds, this cohort of Wall Street bets and their army of retail investors are refusing to sell their stock, further raising the price of GameStop, along with a handful of other heavily shorted stocks like AMC and BlackBerry. Hedge funds have lost an estimated total of $19 billion as a result of this short squeeze, with the biggest losers being the hedge funds of Melvin Capital, D1 Capital, and Mets owner Steve Cohen's Point 72. We go now to a representative of Northeastern's Finance and Investments Club for an expert analysis on this situation. I'd like to welcome Jesse to the show. He is a representative from Northeastern's Finance and Investments Club. Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So do you think that this market activity is a symptom of a larger financial bubble or a new normal for financial markets?
That's a really good question.
Thank you.
Do I think that it was a symptom? I mean, I don't know if it was entirely related to the current financial bubble that we're in. It certainly probably wouldn't have happened in a recessionary period. But at its bare bones, this was started by a subreddit, Wall Street Bets. And they collectively decided to, buy GameStop and push the price up because a hedge fund had a massive short position on GameStop. And they actually almost ran that hedge fund out of business. I think they actually might have ran that hedge fund out of business at this point.
It's unclear, but
yeah, they're in danger of being run out of business. I don't know if it was a symptom of the financial bubble, but I think that it's very possible that we start to see this type of situation happen more frequently in the stock market in the coming years even.
I see. So do you think this will affect future legislation or future trading restrictions?
I think the SEC and other financial regulators are definitely going to have to put something in place with regards to how Robinhood and other how other brokerages handle this. What that's going to look like, I have no clue, because technically the subreddit didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing illegal that happened. It was just that Robinhood and other brokerages were not prepared for what was happening, and therefore it ended up being a threat to the financial system in some respect.
And from your general understanding of the field, how does the broader financial community feel about this? Do you think this mainly in favor of the hedge funds or in favor of the Wall Street Bets?
So I actually spoke to someone that works at a hedge fund about this, and he said something really interesting. It may have started as a retail investor's endeavor, like the subreddit buying up all the GameStop to jump the price, but it actually transformed into a lot of quantitative fund managers and institutional money being involved and jumping on the momentum of GameStop, which actually resulted in, I think, more than half of GameStop's change in price was related to institutional investors still. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think a lot of the hedge funds that were short GameStop are not happy. I think a lot of the funds that weren't involved are happy because they look better by comparison. And I think that the institutional investors that were able to jump onto this are happy because they were able to experience massive gains.
So one of the big factors that we've seen in this big short squeeze on GameStop is kind of not stock trading as a form of money making so much as a stock trading as a form of activism. Where with a lot of these Wall Street bettors, they are doing this to kind of stick it to the big hedge funds and to the big companies. So any words on, do you think this could be a possible future for activism or a possible future for trading in general?
I mean, it definitely started out as partially activism. I think at this point, all the trading that's happening in GameStop isn't or shouldn't be attributed to activism. I mean, at this point, all the hedge funds that they were trying to, stick it to, were able to cover their short positions. So there's no stick it to the big market makers at this point. They're all out of the position if they want to be out of the position. So the short squeeze, as it's known, is over at this point. Right now, I would just say that the trading around GameStop is purely momentum based, and at this point, most of the people that were in it for activist purposes have most likely exited or are just riding the wave and are saying, okay, I did this because I wanted to be an activist, but I'll take the financial gain as well.
All right, so I'd like to thank Jesse from Northeastern's Finest Investment Club for coming on our show today and talking to us about GameStop and that whole situation. Thank you, Jesse. Now back to you, Nick, in the studio.
Thanks, Tommy. Well, that's the news. The rest is up to you. Be sure to like us on our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with the Husky Update. My name is Nick Stolte. Thank you for watching.